AI will be surprised.
So Joe, would you, we're going to do introductions in a minute. Would you just talk about your idea of conversations and communications and your relationship with yourself and how it affects your communications with others and Bucky's geometry of thought? I think all those things I just said are kind of keyed into what you were talking about. Would you please summarize what you were talking about? And we'll have this discussion before we begin our call. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, basically, it was just one of the basic ideas was the subject-object relationship, and I'm thinking about it in just two dimensions in the sense that I was thinking, well, there was something bothering me, and I was thinking about it in terms of, well, wait a minute, when I interact with the world, I never really, I'm never angry or upset with anybody, and I always wish everybody well. And then what I realized is that when I was triangulating, it's not only my relationship with other people, which is the in-between, but it's also the other aspect of it, which is the relationship with myself. And so it's the internal relationship as well as the external, and that's how the idea of foreignness. So that's one aspect of it that was really kind of we've kind of talked about in a way how we relate to the world. It's part of physics.
And what you said, Joe, was that I'm talking to this person and I'm angry, and the anger may not be about me and that person, it may be about me and what's going on inside of me. Didn't you say something like that?
That's exactly right. Well, that's exactly right. So it's the anger with the observer, not the what's going on outside. It's the internal, not the external. So I was never really, and so we were, talking about this in terms of, how, things that exist, things that are subsystems that exist, and then there's a relationship in between those two things, and then you look at what's in between, and that's a way of triangulating. But the other way to count the fourth is yourself. So you're not only triangulating with the world and out the external, but you're also triangulating with the observer, which is yourself, which is the system calling on itself. So when I say something like I think, it's about that's the subject and the object, so that you're referring back to yourself. So then when you're saying about yourself, how you relate to the world, and what I was kind of not thinking about was how my relationship with myself was actually impacting the way I was reacting.
Right.
So that was one aspect. That was a really, so that was a.
Let me hold on to that. Can I hold on to that point? And
yeah.
And Anne, can you hold on to your point and let me explain something here relative to that? Because what I want to show you guys is, in a way, what you're talking about is concave versus convex thinking.
Correct.
Right? So when I'm looking out at the world's out there, that could be a concave relationship. When I look inside, that could be the convex relationship. Right. So if we remember Bucky's tetrahedron, there's the tetrahedron we see, then there's a tetrahedron we don't see. Right. And that is the relationship in this conversation, is the relationship with ourselves. So that's it. And if I can show right now, I want to, and Anne, I hope you keep your thought because this is really critical. Yeah. I have a diagram here of Bucky's circles of irrelevancy. Let me share my screen and show you. And I'm going to show you like a second and third generation of that thing. So I'm just going to share my whole screen. And then what I hope I'm going to do is share the right one first. Let me share the right one first. So here is Bucky's circles of irrelevancy. And this is so complicated. What we see here is we see that in the middle here, and these are just different diagrams of the same thing. Bucky explains it in figure 1, he re-explains it in figure 2, he re-explains it in figure 3. But the things that they have in common is that 5A in the upper left and 5 in the upper right and 5A in the lower is the same thing. These are the conceptually finite or the relevant things. And because they're the right frequency and they're the right size. As we move out, we have things that are lower frequency and larger size. And as we move in, we have things of higher frequency and smaller size. And as we move into the center, it gets faster and smaller until it's not relevant because we cannot perceive it. So this is one aspect of Bucky's circles of irrelevancy. And when my consciousness exists in circle 5, and what is too small to understand, I have what's almost relevant or what's tantalizingly relevant. It's just too small to get clear. And then inside is the micro irrelevant. It's just too small and too fast for me to see it. Outside, it's too big and too large for me to see it. Well, I was contemplating this, and so I did a set of circles, and I drew it this way to kind of put some dimensionality in it. Here is conceptually finite or relevant, tunably synchronous, approximately simultaneously, so that I can perceive what's this. And so what I said is the human exists inside this, and then there's a radiation effect going out. Here's my concave relationship with that which is outside of me, and here's my convex relationship with that which is inside or too small. Now I admit I'm saying inside and too small, those are actually not the same thing, but I think allegorically or metaphorically, they are the same thing. In other words, Joe just said, you said, here I am, and I'm having a conversation with myself. This is a
Right.
convex relationship.
Right.
And I'm having a conversation with myself while I'm having a conversation with a guy outside of me. And notice what he puts down here. This is radiational. As I look into concave, it's radiational energy. And as I look into convex or too small, it's gravitational energy. That kind of blew me away. So then I did another chart and I said, because I'm everywhere in that inner circle, so this is me. And now we're talking about a 4-dimensional reality because outside is 3D and inside is the fourth dimension. Then I took it one step further, and I've got some other things here that are further along. But is everybody getting this? This is
Yeah.
me, and I have a
Yes.
concave relationship with everything that is slow and large, and I have a convex relationship with everything that is small and fast. Now, any comments or questions there? Because I want to go to one more point.
No,
No, I
that's
mean,
Hmm.
gosh, but
Yeah. And I admit that there's some duality going on here because, Joe, your conversation was the conversation you have within yourself, and that if I'm angry, it's because something here has triggered some energy inside of me. And I'm not really angry with this person out here. I'm angry based on my past experience and what's inside of me. And yet I get angry. That's what's going on inside, which is gravitational. It's the past. It holds me back, and I'm relating with others, and that's radiational, and I'm moving out. So anyway, I'm stretching the metaphor, but I'm hoping you guys see some sensibility to this.
Oh yeah, I can see the expansion and the expansion as well.
Yeah, expansion, exactly right.
Yes, I love
Because,
it.
because
Absolutely.
contraction is something that's going on, but this ability to see further and further in is an expansion, like a Mandelbrot set, where you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's fractal and continues to expand. The further I go in, the more it expands.
Yeah.
Just
it,
further I go out, the more it expands, right? If I get a better microscope, I see more and more going on that so was small I couldn't see before. And as I get a good telescope, I see more and more what's going on that was so large and so infrequent that I didn't see it before. Got it. Any other comments? Because I want to show you one more thing.
no,
Sure.
I
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, this is also an element of consciousness and awareness that
Yes.
exists in here, and so and it's based on my position, right?
Yeah.
My position and my perception. So this is where my position is between the
Between the
the
micro and the macro, the convex and the concave.
exactly. So that's my position, right? So but my my ability to be aware is based on my experiences and where I am at a particular moment in time.
Right.
And so my awareness allows me to either look in or look out. But if I were like too far where I am almost the finite non-conceptual finite. That's
Right.
almost as if I have no awareness of self.
Exactly. It's too
And
small
then
to even
exactly.
comprehend.
That's
Yeah.
right. And that's just information. And that's where I'm just reacting. I'm not intentional at all. I
Yeah.
have no intention at all. So anyway, it's an interesting like kind of place. It kind of shows us where we are maybe on as far as and there's this element of like kind of what is knowledge within this? How do I
Exactly.
actually So anyway, yeah, it's fantastic. And I love it like concave and convex. The arrows really depict that beautifully.
Yeah. And so, Ann, do you have any comments on this much so far or any questions? Because
Nope.
I'm about to throw out a really big one.
I'm loving it. Yep. Just carry on.
Okay, so over this last week, I had this big epiphany, which I shared with Joe, that there is this gravitational and radiational effects that deal with them from micro to macro, from micro non-conceptual finite withinness that's just too dadgum small to me relevant in my life. Unless I get a big microscope and look in, or unless, like Joe, I stop arguing for a minute and say, hey, I'm not arguing with this guy. I've got issues going on inside of me.
Right.
I have something going on. This gravity of the past experience is pulling me back. And I want to spread out. I want to expand my awareness, my consciousness. I want this guy to be my friend. I would like to take what this guy sees and make it part of my reality too. But oh no, I'm hanging on to my past and I'm not allowing myself to do it. So that's, to me, I admit that this metaphor is being used kind of a double entendre, but I want to show you one more thing. So imagine the non-conceptual finite withinness, too small to recognize. So I saw another chart, and here's what I saw this week. Where'd they go? Okay, right here. So I saw, imagine this dot is non-conceptual micro, too small to recognize. Here it is, too small, too frequent to measure. And so therefore it's irrelevant, right? I have no calibration tools available at all to be able to see this. The relationship of not measurable, and I called this the MIL or the MII, is concave or radiative. And so it's pushing out. And that's why we have the red first. I'm going to number these. Now that I'm talking to you, I'm going to number this. So there's your first red concave. It's convex on this side and concave on that side, right? And so then we get to micro irrelevant. It's too frequent to really measure accurately. Inside is micro irrelevant. This is so small, I don't even see it as part of reality. A normal human being would say, well, that doesn't even exist. If you're a Bucky guy, you say, well, probably something is there, and all I've got to do is expand my awareness and get there. And so but now we move to the next thing, micro irrelevant. If we go back to this thing right here, there is the non-conceptual finite. So this white circle is the red dot. And then we have the concave boundary here. And this first thing is the twilight zone of almost relevant. And that's exactly what this thing is here. This is the micro tantalizing or almost irrelevant because it's almost too small and too infrequent to measure. And notice the circle goes out. Here's the concave part and here's the convex part. And I kind of broke it out and said, hey, this relationship is convex. If it's convex, it's gravitational. And if it's concave, it's radiational or it's radiative or radiational. This was an epiphany I just had this last couple of weeks. So I don't know if you guys are grasping it at all.
Well,
And it may not be even relevant.
it is. No, 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 no. I mean, and it doesn't map one to one with something that I was thinking. But I bet you if we played around with this, Steve, that let me throw it into the chat here. Let me try and do it. So this won't fit one to one. It really won't. But parts of it will. What
Yeah.
you're saying are some of the logic proofs that I was then thinking about.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
if Y and if not this, it's this. Like the idea of the negation of something. So I just put it in the chat. Is that so if there's different logical proofs. So the idea of something being it's either true. Wait a minute. It's either biconditional. So something is if only if. So basically, there's something that's conditional based on two different sets of conditions, and that's kind of where you're getting at with the circles. I'm betting I'm on my phone, but I bet you I can map these logic proofs onto some of the things that you've been saying with concave and convex.
Yeah, I would
It's
hope
like, yeah, it will. I mean, now these aren't all. This isn't a total list of logic proofs, but I bet you Aristotle's logic proofs to some degree fit on this.
Is parallel with it in some regard. I want to point out, and I'm realizing I'm so glad you guys let me share this because I need to colorize this chart to make sure it correlates with the other chart. So I've highlighted this area here. This area is relevant, micro and macro. It's measurable and calibratable in size and frequencies. And this is the blue zone that's over here in this thing. This is the blue zone here. And the concave, here's the concave outside the blue zone, and here's the convex inside the blue zone. And that's exactly where we are here, is that if I make this blue zone again,
right.
Here's your, I can't, for some reason it's not maintaining a square, but I'm gonna do this again and I'll maintain it. Here we go. I won't let go. So again, there's your concave and your convex, that is blue. And as you move up, you're going more and more micro. And as you move down, you're going more and more macro. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of, and when you started talking, Joe, I thought, oh my gosh, this is exactly what my epiphany has been this last week, you know?
Well, I know we can actually fit some, logical proofs on this. And then I think that this is just adding to it. But I think what you've captured is something else that's really important is the signals that are coming in and out.
Right.
And that's really, really important because that's how we orient things. And so when tuning in and tuning out, and this is where actually, in a way, the concentric circles that I was talking about earlier is basically all based upon a set of relationships.
Yes.
And they're based on a set of relationships, and they're called Heraclean concentric circles. So my relationships with, the people all over the world, my relationship with the people that are in a country, my relationship with people that are in my family, or my friends, people that are within my family, people that are, and then myself. It gets all the way back down to myself.
Yeah.
So there's a Heraclean concentric circles that can relate to some of the concave and convex and tuning in and tuning out that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm tuning in, right, to people that are closest to me. This is part of my relevancy, but it's also the ability to tune out to everything that I'm not directly, it may be too big and too infrequent, but I can conceive of it.
Exactly. Now, when you say tune in, again, this addresses the double entendre of this chart, because you're saying I'm tuning into the conversation I'm having with myself. I'm tuning into this convex thing. My past experience is getting in the way. And what I would suggest is that I tune into that, and I also tune into what's going outside of me. So there's no language in English language that really does this. There are no words that are standardized words. I have to talk around this to say where it is similar and where it is dissimilar. So what I'm going to say is when I tune in to larger frequencies that are non-simultaneous and that are too large or too infrequent. I can also tune in to finer frequencies, which are normally too small and too frequent to observe. So that's one thing. And then you're talking about the conversation with others and self. So this is where the double entendre in this chart occurs.
Yeah. And so, let me see if I can, yeah, it just, and this is, again, just needs to be mapped out a little bit, and there are some different versions.
Yeah. And the other thing that I want to point out, I'd love to hear you more expand on those. So keep thinking about it. Maybe we can talk about it next week, or we can talk about it now if you want to. But I also want to point out that Bucky called these circles, in actuality, they are spheres. They are not concentric circles, they are concentric spheres. The concentric circles in 2D, they're concentric spheres in 3D, and they become concentric hyperspheres in 4D.
That actually makes sense to me. Wow.
Well, I'm amazed.
That really
makes sense to
actually,
me, and I said it.
well, no, that actually gets into a little bit what we've been talking about with cosmometry, and kind of understanding even spherical packing.
Yes.
That's
we were talking
yeah,
about spherical Planck packets on
yeah,
Wednesday. Yeah.
and then go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
Carry
ahead,
on,
Dan.
Joe. Carry on, Joe.
Oh no, I was just thinking the overlapping experiences as well, and that's a little bit more. It, it's still relevant, but it's a little bit different than what we're saying right now.
But Joe, you hit the nail on the head in terms of what my rant is about, because I said this looks 2D, those are circles, but it's 3D, they're spheres, but it's actually 4D. And you just said it, overlapping experiences create a four-dimensional thing, because this is not a sphere. These are a bunch of spheres in some kind of movement, right?
That's right.
In
That's
some
right.
kind of precession, right?
It's a dance.
Yes, it's a dance. And by being multiple spheres over time, I'm actually addressing a 4D interrelationship. Because how I was feeling 5 minutes ago affects how I'm feeling now, and how I'm feeling now affects how I felt 5 minutes ago, and both are going to affect how I feel in 5 minutes, unless they don't. Unless I can take a big deep breath and say, brand new. Here I am right now in this moment, brand new.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I have something to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm writing it down.
Hey, please write it down and get clear on it.
Taking notes as fast as I can. Okay. This whole thing, like when we see this, because things are written flat, right? Things are written flat. So people walk away in their head subconsciously it's 2D, right? It's 2D. So that kind of reminders, yeah, that you just mentioned, Steve, that is so powerful, right? Because it's not just about it being able to see from a 4D space, but that's how human beings in the world, we function at 4D or maybe even more, because we are multidimensional, right? We're so multidimensional. I'm not even sure, like if you start defining dimensions, then we may get beyond 4, So just because we can't quantify it and all that, or draw it in such a way you can see 5D, 6D, and so on, doesn't mean that we don't function in more dimensions than 4, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
for me, I feel that a lot of information training, people being told, about the world or even what to do and so on, comes from a 2D, 3D space. It's not even 4D,
Right.
And there lies the problem, right? Because they know what they know, but the things they don't know constitutes the next dimension that is so critical to some of the decisions that leaders make, and they're not even aware of it. So anyway, that's the one that I wanted to say about what you've just touched on. I want to go backwards a little bit about what Joe said about AI. Right, Joe, you're right, AI coming in, but what we are understanding now is that the way the human beings are shut down for asking questions and being curious and so on, it will be done. It will be done. It will no longer give us time in the future, because what I've seen is the AI that is coaching people right now. You can ask any questions, right? and they know more than any teacher does, and not threatened by what they don't know, that
Right.
yes, this is my friend telling me that AI is coming on board and going to take over the teacher's job, right? It won't change, education won't change for the next 10 years, but there will be outliers that will grow more and more. Like right now, there are 800,000 world schoolers, traveling around the world. There's a whole community out there.
800,000 what?
World schoolers across the world. There's a community.
Oh, world what? Spell that word.
World schoolers instead of homeschoolers.
Schoolers. Okay, people at school. Okay,
they
good.
don't homeschool. Parents don't homeschool anymore. They world school their children.
School.
I got
School,
it.
yeah.
School. Yeah.
World schoolers, because I've got a couple of them in my
This
school.
is Bucky.
Sorry,
Joe?
Joe, you're saying Bucky what? Sorry.
No, this is go ahead. No, go ahead. Oh no. So this is one of the things actually, and I had a conversation a little bit about this earlier. Is the idea of education automation that Bucky had actually talked about.
Yes.
So this is it in a way. Okay.
Cool.
And yeah, I saw a video of a guy talking to the AI, and he was going for an interview. So it was a chat. It was a real friendly chat, and he was asking questions, and AI was talking to him, not replying, just right. On a flat tone, right? And so he was replying and asking more questions. And the thing is that the whole curiosity and the nature of children being able to ask and explore and discover is on the way already. In fact, a couple was, I think, almost a year ago, one of my friends came to me, and he was asking whether we wanted this program for math. It's AI based, and they're using ChatGPT is language, right? So they're doing this for math, which is on the numerical and the conceptual concepts of patterns and numbers, right? So and the kid can ask a question, but the AI will not answer directly, right? The answer will ask questions in return, or give little bits to help them get to where they need to go. So the AI is going to do a better job than teachers in turning the whole education on its head, where the kids are encouraged to be curious and ask questions, and they can ask anything. Like even right now, kids and adults are fooling around and asking really weird questions, and Siri is answering, Yeah. And the way the answering is also can be quite cheeky as well. I was blown away. Anyway, that is coming. So we would get to the kind of education that we need, but with AI, not with current teachers and the teacher training that is available right now. Okay, so I just thought it would be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, you're. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Joe.
So I mean, this is really important and fascinating. And I just want to make sure that you're kind of. I don't know if you've used the Khan Academy AI yet, but it's an interesting AI where and it's being tested and really it's kind of advanced right now. And there's this whole study of this idea of the 2 sigma problem, and the idea is fundamentally is that you have great teachers that could be teaching one-on-one with a student, and that the teachers one-on-one with the student can actually move the student 2 deviations, standard deviations away from, and improve them by 2 standard deviations, essentially taking good students and making them great, and making average students good. And so this idea is that its technology is scalable, but teachers aren't. That's the fundamental difference, is that you have this idea that people don't scale. Technology does. So one of the fundamental things that this AI does, and it's only $40 right now, but it'll be free at some point, is that it literally will challenge the child's belief system. And that's the most important thing.
It's called conmigo.
Camingo. Yeah.
Conmigo.
And I think it's, here's the thing is that you'll both love this. I really believe that this is something that can eventually help us overcome our biases and differences, because it makes you step.
Oh,
it makes you state.
It's kind of academy for amigo. Hey, right? I like that.
Yeah, and the thing is that it. I just thinking now. This is just kind of crazy thinking. Is that you load everybody's media profiles on there. You have their opinions and thoughts of the world, but then you can challenge them. So in some ways, when you go into these tools, that you put an opinion down, and you can say something about an opposing opinion, but then it asks you, why do you think the opposing opinion believes what they do? So that you're actually looking at and understanding as to why. So you may not change your opinion, but you understand as to why someone else believes something. And there's a greater degree of empathy that is then developed for the other person. And that the possibilities with this, I think, is really, it challenges our beliefs about the world. And that's something that is fundamentally kind of where humans would automatically have their bias creep in and jump in and say what they believe, whereas this would automatically just challenge you to state, why is it that you believe what you believe what they believe?
In
so
a way,
that knowing that,
it almost makes my personal belief irrelevant, except for the fact that it brought me to the conversation. My belief
exactly
in the conversation, but it's not certainly the way the world works. And realizing that I can ask a question and go in any direction is really profound. So this is wonderful.
Yeah, it's
so
great.
Anne, did you have any comments on this? So I put the link.
I'll go check it out.
The link in the chat.
Perfect. Perfect.
And it also takes something from, and I gave a little presentation on this at one point. Take something from, and this is the product of what we were talking about and summarizing what I was talking about earlier with CJ, Steve, is this idea of cultivating our ignorance, right? We're asking a question, and then it's cultivating our ignorance about not what we know, what I believe to be true. It's about, why does somebody believe what they believe to be true? So it's my ignorance about their perspective that it is then trying to pull into my consciousness. Right. So when it's like kind of now forming myself in a way that I'm saying, now I'm not just saying what I believe is fact and true. It's why do other people believe what they believe to be true? And that is the way I distinguish between the two is, and this is something actually I almost brought up on Wednesday. It's a dialectic and not an heuristic conversation. So the idea that, so the example I gave in at the end of our meeting last week was, okay, we have something like girls proof, and there's a true and false statement, and then all of a sudden you don't have a complete system where everybody was looking for a complete system, and now what is it that some people interpreted that as a really horrible thing, and some people interpreted it as an opportunity to see the connection between things. And the whole point being is that it's how a person would relate with what they were trying to seek to do in the first place. A person that was trying to seek improve their idea and not necessarily looking at, they were only looking to prove that they were right, looked at that problem and said, oh my God, my life's work's ruined, I'm wrong, as opposed to saying, this is something that's been disproven, now I can look at the connection between things. But the idea was, they were looking at the way their relationship with the discipline, the object, as having to prove themselves right. And that's an heuristic kind of approach, as opposed to a dialectic, which is actually looking at things from this isn't true. Now I can look at the other connections between things, and I'm looking for truth or truth. I'm looking for something that is closer to that is more accurate
Yeah.
with my understanding of the world. And so,
And
but
see,
basically, it's a dialogue. It's not a trying to prove something.
but I think, Joe, I think that in there's some language issues, because it's not that what I believed is not true. What I believed was true as far as my experience and as far as I approached the dialectic. And so now, yes, what I said was true in that context, and now I see a bigger context. And so it isn't an absolute truth. And suddenly I can see now
Correct.
all
That's
truth
right.
is relative, right? It's relative to my perspective.
That's
And
right. And then
things can
and that
be very, yeah, okay. I
no,
just
you're
want
right.
to finish
Go
this.
ahead.
Things can be very true for me from my perspective, and they can be very true for you from your perspective, and you could be right and I could be right. And now when we start to bring our universes together, we then see reality more the way that it really is, instead of just being stuck with our own little preconceived experience and bias.
That's absolutely right.
All right, cool. I love it. I want to move into dimensionality, but I want to make sure everybody has a opportunity to complete their thought at this level. Any other
No.
thoughts, comments? Everybody complete? Good. Joe, I wanted to talk about the graph that you put into the chat, and I'm going to show it to everybody because I think this is important.
Yeah, just
Oh,
go really
before
quickly.
you look at this, I'm going to pause for a second. Before you look at this, I want to talk about dimensionality, because just like I think dimensionality can mean many things. One way to look at dimensionality is in the terms of, is this a 2D universe, a 3D universe, a 4D universe, a 5D universe, a 6D universe? In fact, quantum mechanics has basically established that there are probably 11 dimensions in this universe. But that's one way to look at it. What is physical reality? We perceive it in a three-dimensional hack with our two-dimensional brains, but how many dimensions is the universe really? Now, that's a very objective conversation, very difficult to prove, because the brain only thinks in 2D, and I have to hack it to move to 3D, and I have to do a double hack to move to 4D. The brain does 3D hacks daily, and to move into a four-dimensional understanding of the universe is something very creative. And I like to tell people, hey, what do I mean by a 4D universe? What is a dimension? A dimension is simply a way to measure my experience.
Right.
And that's why I like your chart, Joe, because your chart is basically showing me I have my mind and myself, then my body, then my parents, then my uncles and aunts, then my other family, then common people, then the tribe, then fellow citizens. Then every one of these concentric circles or spheres, if we want to look at it 3D, is just another dimension of mind and self. It's just another dimension. It's just another way to measure my reality. So on the one hand, dimensionality is something that's scientific and be calibrated, but not very well perceived by the human brain. On the other hand, dimensionality can just be perceived by the human brain as another way to look at the reality. And when I look at this reality, my personal reality in terms of my tribe, I see something different than when I look at my reality in terms of just my uncles, aunts, and grandparents, and nephews and nieces. Yeah. So I love your chart because it just continues to add another dimension to the conversation. That's my point that I wanted to bring up about dimension.
And the other thing I want to add to this, because this is brilliant, I love this, and because for every one of these circles, because it's going outward, right? For every one of these circles, there's also the inside, right? The things that we cannot see. So for self alone, what Bucky has done is that there are 30 under his cosmic integrity, hierarchy, right? So just self alone, I think there's 30 over, correct? So that's going inward. And then at the same time, when we add the body, there's also the inward side. And then we talk about siblings, parents. You can see the outward networking of the, like how we're related to each other and so on, the relationships. But then within the relationships, there's also the insight part of it, right? So it's like, wow, when you draw it like this, then we see the community and how the kind of people and that we connect to. But at the same time, there's so much that is happening internally as well. So if it wasn't for our calls on this past years, I would never have looked at it that way. It would have been, yeah, as I see it here, and yeah, there's a lot, but not the ones that are unseen. So for me, that's really, really exciting. Is it 18 or more?
This is
Me is 18.
This is the 18 me's. This is just me in Bucky's hierarchy, cosmological hierarchy. Remember, it starts off with, I think, nature. I can pull it up here in a second.
That's right. That's right.
When it gets down to me, I have the intuitive me, the intellectual me, the sensorial, the memory me, the biophysical me, the biochemical me, the scientist me, the common sense me, the art me, the verbal me, the gesture community. Here are all these dimensionalities of my persona. So and you brought it up, Anne, so I just thought I'd reaffirm your mention of this. And notice he gives the same signal over here. If you look in the second column, there's this kind of dotted L shape. And if I pull up the cosmic hierarchy, if I pull up the whole thing, I think I need to take off hierarchy.
You got to definitely put that in the chat again, Steve. I know I have it, but
yeah, I'm okay. I'll drop it in the chat. I'll leave it open till I do that. There's more to this, and I am not knowing why I'm not seeing it here. I do not know why I'm seeing it. So I'll keep looking for it. And if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, we can talk about it.
No, I mean, I think that this is actually one of those things is that where we can start to kind of synthesize, and I've been thinking about this in terms of our language and how we kind of even what you've put together in that chart, or that you didn't, but the Bucky put together in that chart, is essentially how we perceive the world through language scientifically and all the different ways we actually perceive the world and perceive ourselves. Then we can kind of think about that in terms of how the whole idea with the concentric circles is, it's called, the theory of okiosis. It's the theory of appropriation, and it's about how we relate to the world.
Right on. Now go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead, I'm done.
Okay, so here is the cosmic hierarchy from Synergetics section 1056.20. And notice how it isn't nature that's outside, it's cosmic integrity. And notice that the symbol for cosmic integrity is the fullerene, the buckyball. But notice it's also the I, that dotted L, which is the meanness. So Bucky is saying, look, I got cosmic integrity and I got me. And that is the ultimate sphere of inclusion. These are spheres of inclusion. And it goes from cosmic integrity, or me, to synergy, nature, unknown, universe, metaphysical, physical, syntropy, entropy, astrophysics, solar system, earth, biologicals, and then continues to go down through this list. I'll put this whole thing in because there's the 18 me's at the end of it. Well, you brought that up, Anne, and I just wanted to reaffirm that for you. And then I kind of do a little summary down here. So
this is fantastic.
Yeah, I'll drop that in the chat right now, and I'll attach it to the situation next week. Any other comments or thoughts before we leave this page?
No, I mean, just see.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Joe, carry on.
No, I was just looking at and all that's unknown and everything about that, and even that in and of itself is like kind of gets back to the question of how do we cultivate.
Joe, I think you just broke up. How do we cultivate what?
Ignorance.
Joe, you broke up. How do we cultivate what?
What?
We're having trouble. Your
You
signal.
know, with confidence, like unknowns, like, sorry about that.
You're back, so go ahead.
Oh, no, basically it was the section of the, and I was scrolling through it. It's hard to see from my phone exactly, but it basically is about cultivating ignorance and like what is our known, what are known unknowns, and what are unknown unknown, like kind of so that Bucky's kind of going through the same ideas on that same chart, but it's in a way it's the same concept of how do we cultivate what we don't know,
Right.
and what we
You're breaking up again, Joe. You left off with how do we cultivate what we don't know? Now it looks like he's lost his signal. What? You're back now. What you said last we heard was how we cultivate what we don't know. What?
What do we really understand? Comes the question. So it's I'll create a map for it. It's something that I can map out onto a piece of paper a little bit more distinctly. So it's hard to explain on the phone.
Right. And if Richard were here, he'd be talking about the Bohmian dialogue. You know, the idea of continuing to expand the conversation
right
by allowing all of the participants to interconnect. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
correct.
Wonderful. Okay. If we're complete on this discussion, and thank you guys for just being willing to jump right into it, we'll go ahead and begin the call. Are we complete?
Yeah, I'm trying to find where I'm trying to find where I downloaded the Bucky the synergetics thingy, the cosmic hierarchy.
Well, I just put it in the chat, so it's there in the chat.
Yeah, no, but no, it's where I download it. I don't know where. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I think I'll. Never mind. Carry on. Just saying, if you see me not on,
sometimes.
Shall we start the call?
Sure.
Yeah, let's go.
Start the call. Joe, how are you feeling, and what do you expect to get out of the call tonight?
I've already gotten everything I expected and more. I mean, I guess I'll put it this way: I gotten a lot more than I expected. So, and just kind of having this conversation, and let me tell you, let me just back up. The best thing about this conversation is that I had somebody share my experience with at camp.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's for me. That's it's been a great discovery, great conversation, great ideas. But it's like anything else. The thing that really makes it meaningful is the ability to kind of talk about this in somebody else's hair.
Right on. You want to pass along the intro?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Ann. How do you feel, and what are you taking away from today? Just really quickly, Steve. I can't email this to myself.
Okay.
We haven't taken anything.
Yeah, I'm first very, very excited because we've already gotten a lot before the introduction, and that's what we are about an hour in, so another hour to go. Yay! Yeah, let's see what else comes out. And Steve, how do you feel, and what do you expect takeaway today?
I'm right with you guys. I mean, to have an epiphany about concave, convex intercommunications with oneself and how one looks at the universe in terms of too small and too infrequent, too small and too frequent, or too large and too infrequent. Just to even have that conversation with another human being is amazing. And to have Joe over there having epiphanies this week that are the same as my epiphanies, and then to have us be able to talk about this and review is just so profound for me. I mean, I'd be happy if we hung up now, but we have a whole another hour here, so I'm excited. So I'm complete. So if everybody's complete, we'll start the book. We ready?
Yep.
All right, let's see here. And Joe, thanks for sharing that.
Go for it.
Thanks for sharing your concentric circles. For me, it was really critical to add those dimensions. I think it's just really wonderful. And let me see here. I think that what we want to do is this is PDF file, so I think I want to share this because here is a fuller explanation right here, and here's where we are for today. Okay. And I do like to exchange off reading, and so I'm going to just read the opening, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll trade around and we'll go from there. Return to Modelability. We're on page, I think this is actually page, I don't know, we'll discover. It's page, I can look at my book.
We'll help you.
Oh, you know what? We already read this. Yeah, we did. We're down to operational mathematics. So let's get down there.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
We're down to operational mathematics. I want to go to the next page. So here we go. There we go. Down to the next page. There we go. And we want to get to page. There we go. I'm having trouble because okay, there's page 7 and we're on page 8, the bottom of page 8. So here we go. All right, operational mathematics. Whoops. All right, here we go. We can imagine the young Bucky, an enthusiastic misfit, sensing that he is alone in his skepticism about the fundamental premises of geometry. Does no one see what I see? Does no one else sense the terrible problems that lie ahead if we follow these absurd premises to their logical ends? While his grade school classmates were apparently content to go right along with the teacher's strange games, Bucky was astonished by the implausible new concepts. Bucky would tell us that he tried constantly to accept the rules, be a good student, make his family proud, submit to and even excel at the illogical activities, but somehow his efforts at model behavior were always thwarted. He just couldn't help pointing out that the teacher's straight line is not at all a straight line, but rather a slightly curved and definitely fragmented. Perplexed by her lack of accuracy, Bucky saw a trail of powdery chalk dust left in the blackboard and a trace of the motion of her hand, and it seemed quite unlike her words. Bucky was virtually blind until he got his first eyeglasses at the age of 5. So he truly experienced life without this primary sense. I didn't know that. Now he was insatiably curious about his visual patterns around him. An infinite straight line, he would turn toward the window, thoughtfully pondering where that infinite line stopped. Out the window and over the hill and on it goes. It didn't seem right somehow. Bucky, childishly earnest even in his 80s, would tell this story, explaining that he didn't mean to be fresh. He just couldn't help wondering if the teacher really knew what she was talking about.
Yeah. Actually, I have some.
Go ahead.
Actually, I have something to add here. One of the things having dealt with young people, more because I'm one of the few people who actually have got to teach a range of age groups from 4 until working adults, all the way through to high school, to college, and working adults, right? So and then also being able to teach the same kid for very, very few people have ever taught the same child for 13 years. Very few actually teach the same child for 4 years, for that matter. But to teach one at 10, 11, 12, 13 years, it's literally unheard of, right? So because of that, I really got to see over years, because I spent 38 years now, I listen a lot to the children, right? And then I observe, actually, and then because we've been dealing with them differently, I realize is a lot of times people think that when children are not obedient in school, they answer back, they are distracted, they get into trouble, they do the things that the teachers tell them not to do, or they don't listen at all. Actually, all of that, even though Bucky is looking at what people see are obedient kids, like they're listening, they're not thinking. Many of them, all those behaviors are them acting out because of just too many things, as how Bucky described it, wasn't making sense to the children. Okay, so the minute the teacher says things that don't make sense to them, so it comes across as very stubborn to the teacher. The child is stubborn, the teenager is stubborn, or rebellious. It isn't actually. It is just that they just won't do it. They in fact, it'll come a point where some of them get so angry at the parent or the teacher inside, they will outrightly defy. So again, people say this kid has got troubles, difficult student and so on. But I've learned that they are not. It is because they could not explain what it is that they're feeling. So kids are very intuitive, right? So they will react. You'll see exactly how they feel or react to what you say or what you do, and so a lot of people identify that as the child having the problem and not the teacher. Even a simple thing like you go to school and then as a parent and the teacher tells you that, oh, your kid is easily distracted, or they're fidgety, or, they just can't pay attention, can you do something about it? Talk to them. But the thing is that the teacher has placed the responsibility on the child, even being lazy, not doing the work. If the work is boring, doesn't make sense, who would want to do it, right? So always the blame is on the child and never on the teacher. So this for me is a huge thing that I realized. And it's not something that you can go online and talk about it, because you will have millions of teachers all over the world coming after you on it, things like that. So it's not, I've not like dealt with it, but I may need to figure a different way of presenting this. And for some of the things that they are asked to do by the teachers, or the punishment that they get because the teachers cannot get it right with them, very often is borderlining on abuse, or mental, emotional abuse, and to the point where the minute kids are afraid and they dare not do anything, or to the point where they are so scared to go to school, well, those are signs to check whether they're being bullied,
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, that's interesting. Yeah.
And congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So
that is
sorry. Yeah. So for me, what we teach the teachers to do is, the kids, the reaction to you is your immediate feedback as to whether you're doing the right thing or not. And what the reaction should be. So we talk to them about how to adjust it to get to that point. Not an easy thing. Yeah.
What a challenge.
It's it's really actually interesting. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, so I mean, and down the line we'll actually come to a little bit more of a, kind of a better understanding. But I've been in conversation with a group that I think you're going to be very interested in. Is it's about how to simplify feedback in general between both student and teacher, but even employee, employer, and to improve feedback in a way that actually is going to, I think it not only will kind of improve communication, but it'll also be a way of kind of specifying education, and kind of even there'll be an opportunity for kids to create things on the platform and be really creative. And I really do. I really hope to introduce it to you at some point soon. It's an AI tool, but it completely changes language and feedback, and it really kind of breaks through hierarchical structures. And so anyway,
boy, is our world going to change, and it's going to change really rapidly.
And actually, for teaching, we boil it down to one sentence as feedback, and that's for the teacher to reflect. Okay, and you can ask it of the kids also. right, just on feedback alone for themselves, is if the class, as a teacher, if your class is one where the kids are willing to pay to come.
Yeah.
If they have that choice and they
Yeah.
can make the choice to pay to come to your class,
Yeah.
then you're on the right track. If
You're right.
no, that just boils down to that one statement, one question.
So you've inspired me on a thing here, Anne. So I'm going to run the risk of sharing this with you, even though it may or may not be pertinent. I do these workshops on communication. And I talk about different styles of communication. And so what we'll do is we'll sit in a small group of at least 3 people, maybe 4 or 5, because 3 people are actually engaged in the process, and the 4th and 5th or 6th person observe what's going on, and they learn more than the people who are actually engaged, because they're actually watching, whoa, what just happened? But what happens, what I do in my small groups is when they sit in a group of at least 3, but maybe 6, and then the person shares. Now, the job is the person on their left, meaning left brain, is to listen to the words they say, and the person on the right is to observe their emotionality in their sharing. So the person on the left says, the person shares, and the person on the left says, here are the words I heard you say. And they'll say, you said this, you said this, you said this. And the person might actually, whoa, I said that, but I didn't mean that. What I meant was this. And so they have this conversation of left brain word communication. What words did you say? What words do you really mean? And so the person who's speaking actually gets clear about what their communication is, because here are the words I heard you say. Then when that's complete, the person on the right says, wow, when you shared, I saw how excited you were when you said the word astronomy, or when you said the word mother. I saw how red your face got. And I saw that you breathed deeply when you said this. And it looked to me like you were kind of sad when you said that. And so now this person gets a feedback on how emotional how their emotionality is expressed in their language as well. So this is, I like to refer to as left brain, right brain observation, right? And it's amazing because it's amazing how many people they have to learn how to listen to the words. Here are the words I heard you say. Most people don't even listen to the words. They're preparing an argument, right? And then to actually sit down and say, and just observe the emotionality instead of just responding subconsciously. Because, so many times in a conversation, a person will feel deeply and I'll react to their emotionality, not even to their words. And the people who are not involved, person 4 and 5 and 6, they're blowing their minds, because they're seeing how hard it is for the person on the left to actually recapture the words. And they're seeing how the person who's speaking says, oh, but I didn't mean it that. If that's what I said, I didn't mean it. Here's what I meant. And so even the people who are not actively participating in the process are realizing how difficult communication is, and everybody's developing more empathy in the communication. No. It's such a powerful process. So,
appreciate sharing that.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I actually would like to say, if I may humbly, I've attended a bunch of workshops. Nobody had ever done that. I kind of invented that. I'm sure somebody's done it somewhere, but it just seemed to me this was so basic in communication. And having studied hypnotherapy and learning people's ab reactions, their breath, where they look when they speak, and realizing how important that stuff is in the communication, I kind of took what I knew about neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy and applied it just in a conversation, and that's how it came out. So
actually, Steve, that's fantastic. I've never seen anyone do this ever. Yeah, cool. not definitely Asia, definitely not Asia, because we are so far behind, right? And even though we have access to a lot of trainers from overseas and so on and so forth, and the top level ones, I've never seen this. So I'm really blown away by this. I love it.
Wonderful. And I'd love to share even more on it.
Yeah.
And even experiment with it here in our group. It'd be really fun. I mean, it's really something to not react to what somebody's saying, but actually observe and feedback.
I'll tell you, at a younger age, even if you could get that to people, that would really, really, really be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because it's an emotional regulation, essentially. So is what you're teaching people at a very young age.
And I can't regulate unless I observe.
Exactly.
I must learn to observe. Oof, it's exciting.
And breathing within that.
Yeah. How cool.
Okay, let me try that out in some of my meetings.
Okay, cool. Oh, wonderful. And I'd love to hear what happens. Especially with the people who are observing. Those are the people who get the most out of it because they're noticing the game everybody's playing. And they're saying, why is this hard? And why didn't that person hear this word when it was so obvious? You know?
Right.
Yeah, so actually, sorry, Joe, you go first.
No, good. I'm done.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is that, because my people go for meetings, right? And in Asia, because there's so much emphasis on the science and the math and the logical brain, that a lot of people come out to work, and also dealing with their lives from a very task-based, perspective. It's always about the task, getting things done, and then you forget about the person, in relation to it. So because I have to deal with this with my EAs as well. So sometimes I got to remind them. I say, guys, you're going. So sometimes in the meetings I don't go. I ask them to go, right? If they are going. And some I deliberately stay out so they go. And after they come back, and then one of them would share with me, this happened, this. She goes down the list. And then my question to her is, so what did you get out of it? Okay. So then she'll tell me, no, I said, no, those are the facts. You have already reported the facts, but what did you personally get out of it? So what happened in the meeting and what did you get out of it? And she took down none of that. And so
this is another. I went to a Stephen R. Covey seminar. I was training to be a Covey consultant, and I was in a class, and Stephen R. Covey said, here, everybody use this pen. Or he actually didn't use the pen. I started applying the pen. I got this pen in Amway. But he says, when you take notes, have 3 columns. The first is what I'm going to learn today. So I write those notes in my 1 column, what I'm learning. In the second column, I write what I'm going to share with my office and my employees or my family. And the third column is what's so important for me to implement in my personal life. So when I'm listening, I'm actually listening at those 3 levels. And Stephen R. Covey argued that there are different parts of the brain that are doing those things. And by taking notes like that, I'm actually calling on different parts of my brain. So in the first column, I write down what I'm learning. Second column, what I'm going to teach or share. Third column, what I'm going to implement in my life. And I thought that was a really powerful technique. And then I brought the Amway pen into it. So then I put different colors on it. So now I don't have to have 3 columns. I just at the top of the page, I pay notes in blue. What I'm going to implement is in green, and what I'm going to teach is in red, or vice versa. That's why I use
Actually, could you put that in the chat?
I put what in the chat?
Because I think that
3 columns. Okay.
Those 3, because the only reason I say that is right. I could always watch a video. You don't have to do that. But that's funny because what I've been doing is, and this is actually something that I've been doing Bucky stuff to do today, and now I'm trying to look at these models that Bucky has put together, the physical models, and map ideas to them and how they interrelate to one another. So what I mean by ideas, well, just different frameworks of understanding. So now I'm thinking about how the model that you just shared with me relates to data, information, knowledge, wisdom. So what am I doing at why? And so now I'm just thinking about this. But there's also, once I can map that out, it maps out to, I found in some ways, to structures that Bucky actually puts together. Not just these 2 in particular, but just how you can map a set of ideas onto one another. So even this idea of something where you come up with one of the other things that I've really been thinking about is that so one of the, what am I going to share, and what am I going to learn? And the way Anna was talking about tasks, it's a task is your action, and then the other side is your basically capability and capacity. So there's two of these things that are coming together. And then on top of that, you have a set of principles that you're actually going to govern your interactions. And you can kind of start to put together a fundamental structure, and then put together additional ideas within that fundamental structure. And that's kind of like the inside and outside of a framework, you know, of one of Bucky's structures. And anyway, I've been actually doing some drawings with that. So if you put that in there, I could actually map some of that on there, and it actually maps really nicely onto past philosophies in a way. I mean, and I don't want to get too much into this idea that there's, you know, ideas of action and potency and momentum and all these other factors that actually factor into what I'm talking about without getting too abstract. But I actually, anyway, I appreciate you sharing that, Steve, because it'll help me add something onto what I'm building.
And you know what, Joe? In relation to that, as I heard you talk, it seemed to me that if we took your chart that you shared today, that I put out here just 30 seconds ago, and if we inverted this and we had mind and self, and we went from Bucky to start with the whole system, I should turn this around. It should myself, and it should say the whole human race, the people in the same province, the people in my city, my fellow citizens, my tribe. You know, in other words, just invert the rest of these things.
And it's inside and outside.
Yeah. So that I'm actually, instead of looking at myself in terms of my body, that's what most people do. Well, I can't run that fast, so I can't do that. But if I look at myself in terms of the whole human race, well, there are prosthetics that I can use. Maybe I can run that fast, right? Mm-hmm. And then bring all of these dimensions of reality, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different dimensions of this topic, bring it to myself. Start with me and go to human race. Just invert all this list. Just turn it upside down. I'm going to make one just like this, Joe, and I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to steal your graphic and I'm going to make a new one.
Well, hang on. Let me see if I can actually, I think I might be able to, let me see if I can do this really quickly.
I'd like to finish reading that last paragraph in this section.
Yeah, let's do that. Sorry.
All right, good. So here I'm going to find that last paragraph. Here it is right here. Okay. Much later, fascinated by Eddington's definition of science as the systematic attempt to set in order the facts of experience, Fuller had a plan. It must be possible to develop a mathematical system consistent with experience. He concluded that humanity had been on the wrong track all these years. And that might be a great place to stop reading today, although we could go a little bit further because there's only 3 of us. And I wanted to put in the chat before I put anything else, I'm going to put down, I looked up Arthur Eddington in Ready for This Thing. He was a mathematician and English astronomer and physicist, and he was a philosopher of science and popularizer of science. He popularized science. This is English, popularized. They have an S, popularizer. They have an S instead of a Z. So there you go. The Eddington limit. The Eddington limit was the natural limit to the luminosity of stars or the radiation generated by accretion onto a compact object is named in his honor. So there it is. And there's the Wikipedia link to him. Okay. So now I'm going to put in that Covey stuff that you told me about, Joe. that you wanted to have. I've got that organized. Is there
Thank
anything
you.
else we want to discuss before we proceed? There we go. So that's in there now. Are we? Shall we do what we can to read a little bit more, or do? Because we've had such a great call. I think we could read the next section. Experimental. Well, that's actually quite long.
Yeah, it's quite long.
Yeah, experimental evidence is quite long. So maybe this is a good break.
Okay.
I think. That way, when we start next time, we'll start at experimental evidence.
Yeah, and that's a big area too. That's really actually an important section, I think.
Boy, and I hope when we start that experimental evidence section, I hope I can bring to mind everything we've talked about today. This has been a mind-blowing conversation for me. I just love every share that's been here. So, Joe, how you feeling, and what are your takeaways? And you can talk as long as you like. We have 28 minutes.
No, so I feel fantastic. I mean, I have, an assortment of takeaways. I mean, starting with the fact that how we're looking at Bucky's concentric circles, and I mean, forgive me, circles of irrelevancy, and how that actually meant onto relations with both ourselves and the world, and how looking what it really means to kind of what concave and convex actually means in terms of both a philosophical approach, but also once I have that, these mathematical concepts become that much more simple. And that's one of the beauties of Bucky in general, is that when we build these models and talk about these things, go through these ideas in a very, very kind of detailed manner, sometimes it takes a minute for them all to resonate, but the fact that we can have this conversation at this time, and I can take it back and then start thinking about it. I'm finally thinking in terms of models, the way I'm seeing things a little bit more clearly. And I have a lot of people to be grateful for that. And it's a really exciting thing. So for me personally, so it's a privilege to be able to share that with you guys. So that's that was the first thing from this evening. But I also really am excited about the possibilities of not only my epiphanies, my learning and everything, but the potential that children will have in the future. And so in the sense of way of learning, the work that that you both do. I mean, Steve, you teach a lot of people as well. Anna, I keep calling you Anna, my sister's Anna. But it's that working with children, and you're doing something that is I think that's one of the most important things, is letting children know that it's going to be all right by whatever way they can learn. They can experience the world that in a little bit differently, and that it's not them. It's about it's not about the teacher coming down on them. It's about the how to make the child's experience meaningful and not necessarily feel like they're looking at the world incorrectly, because there is no real incorrect way of looking at the world. And Bucky actually, as what we read a little bit earlier today, that was Bucky. And so he just had the ability to kind of challenge conventional wisdom. Not every child has that, and you're providing a platform enabling kids to do that. So definitely check out what I put in the chat with that graphical interface, because I think that that's going to be very important in the future. As well as just, again, some of the other ideas that we've talked about here, is that taking some of the ideas that I've discussed here at camp as far as relationships between, language, ourselves, and other people, and being able to share them and put that into, the Heraclean circles as well as Bucky circles. I mean, again, this is something where I can start to really think about things and be able to synthesize my thoughts more clearly, which is actually going to make me a better person, which is ultimately the most important part. I'm just really grateful to be able to spend the time with you guys. Really, that's the most important thing. So, Anne, how do you feel? What are you taking away from today?
Even more grateful than earlier on when we started an hour ago. And, so, well, the first one is for suggesting, was it Steve that you suggested that we do this book, Bucky, a fuller explanation? Yeah, thank you for suggesting this book. It's amazing. Just by making Bucky clearer for the layman to take on. Like that means we can actually read this book on our own without but unpacking it together is very powerful. The other one is because even before we started the whole thing, you know how many stars I've written down to all the information just on just one page alone. And I can apply definitely the 3-column thing or 3 colors, definitely. And the other thing I just want to share, this notebook that I'm using right now, this I've got all this. These are all the important information. It's inside those pages because otherwise you got to look for them, right? So this book is actually, the drawing is by a student. Her mom is a designer, clothing fashion designer. So she does she has her own style. It starts off doodling, and she created, and she has her own clothing line with these drawings. And one jacket is not Malaysian pricing, okay? It's to the tune of about 500 US dollars. Okay, that's how much her clothing line can charge. She's only about 14 last year when this was launched. And so inside here, I bought this and I asked her if she could write something for me. So she drew it in her style. And at that age, being able to autograph a book, as it stands, I was already cracking my head what to say. She just wrote it and rattled off and took the time to draw it. So I'm just saying that this is the power of kids. They literally are fearless and they just get it done. And the value for them, like we have a lot of baggages, yeah, trying to even decide whether we should price what, and for her jacket, really smart, to be at 500 USD. I was like, way to go. But anyway, a lot of these, I'm gonna go and unpack that in school as well and see what we can apply. So thank you so much, both Joe and Steve. Steve, how do you feel? What did you take away today?
Well, what's amazing to me is that I'm having epiphanies during the week that relate exactly to what's going on and where we are. Joe's epiphanies and Joe's sharing and Joe's insights just seem to be right down the track. And then hearing you share, Anne, about what your experience and then your feedback to us about what you're hearing, how we're all seem to be geographically continents apart, but on the same page boggles my mind. It's just kind of humbling to me. And to think that Buckminster Fuller, who as a young kid frustrated with his teachers, led such a model life, and now invites us to return to model ability. And we get to review operational mathematics and experimental evidence. Wow, it's wonderful. And today I was listening to Lex Friedman interviewing Stephen Wolfram. And Stephen Wolfram had the same thing. He was 12 years old, and he saw a book on entropy and got with a computer and did a program when he was 12 years old, trying to prove what the book said And his program created results that didn't look at all like the book on the cover. And only, this is now 50 years ago, and only now to look back and find out in the last 5 years that the book cover was generated by an artist, that it wasn't generated by a computer program. It's likely that his outcome when he was 12 years old was more accurate than that book cover.
Well,
I mean, this is an example of a 12-year-old kid who saw the universe completely differently. And fortunately, he didn't get beat down, and Stephen Wolfram is quite accomplished. I think he's worth a couple $100 million. He's written a thing called Wolfram Language. He's right on the edge of AI, and he's in fact developed a theory of the nature of the universe that's more in line with Bucky, with tetrahedral. It's all about edges and nodes. It's amazing. Stephen Wolfram's amazing. So I'm honored to be in this group. I'm thrilled that everybody can share and speak, and that we don't just race through it, move to the next chapter. Thank you all for being patient. I've got part of the communication small group exercise. I've got part of it written up here, and I'm going to throw it in to the chat, and then I'll work on it later and send something a little bit later on. I've got down, I'm just beginning the person on the right. And I can say the person on the right, having tracked, having listened and observed the sharer, now gives feedback based on the emotionality. And then I'll finish it up, feedback to the sharer based on the emotionality of the sharer's share. And I'll go ahead and take time to put in here, when you said this, you got excited, and when you said that, you seemed confused, you seemed excited when you said this, and I'll put it in caps. You seemed excited, and when you, I'm so sorry, I'm taking the time. When you said that, you seemed confused, etc. And I'm going to spend some time, because I think this could be in my book, because my book is on extreme mindfulness, which is all about being the observer and not allowing standard solidification to capture the conversation and keep me in my past experience. It's all about not allowing that solidification. It's about being in the flow with what's going on around me. So anyway, I'm so delighted to share, and so delighted for every word I've heard today from you folks. Thank you so much.
and actually, I'm really glad to hear that you're going to put this in your book.
Me too.
Yeah, something that people can take away and use. Very practical.
Wonderful.
And I agree. I mean, I just think that, and I think that this feedback tool that I was talking about, I think it's going to do that. It fits right in with that. And we can talk about that in future sessions.
I wasn't going to put that in the book, but now that you guys, and now I brought it up in that context, and now that you say that, it's kind of important, is it? Because
yes,
one of the things I want to talk about is solidification and habitual response. And if I'm pausing to note the words and then pausing to note the emotionality, the communication, it's going to reduce the rapid solidification and auto response. Wonderful.
and
Thank you.
And this is actually a very when you put it out like that, it looks easy for people to be able to practice mindfulness.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, the idea is brilliant, but because you made it easy that we can actually get this out and to practice that mindfulness.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful. I mean, I can go on a long time about this, so I won't, but it's just this ability to express ourselves simply in a way that we're expressing not as much energy. And the idea of solidification, what you're talking about, Steve, is essentially a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
really is.
essentially, it's a, it's a, or it's in, I would say, even increasing the level of consciousness for each individual.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
So the goal of
The-
my book in the thing, I established that is to see reality the way that it really is. And as you guys point out, if I stop to actually listen to words and feed back on the words before I argue, most people just want to argue the words. They don't want to get clear on the actual communication. And then to pause and say, and when you said this, you seemed excited. When you said this, you seemed confused. Then a person can rate their communication
Right.
based on something more than just their reaction to it.
And
Yeah.
and you know, basically what this is this is how we interact with each other, because it's no longer, it becomes something about no longer just responding, but actually contemplating and actually, you know, well, it is about a response, but it's a better response that is conscious as opposed to just unconscious.
Yeah. Integrating more dimensions to the communication.
Yeah, great. I love that. Have you given a name for this? Is it the right brain, left brain observation? Is that what
No,
you're calling it?
I'm calling it small group communication. I'm calling it communication small group exercise.
I think you're gonna have to put something that, or what it actually does, which is that mindfulness part. I don't know. You need
Okay.
if you can name frame it, because what I want to do is when I share it with my team, I want to give it by that name, and I want to say it's from Steve. Okay, Steve Thomas.
Well,
Yes.
what comes up for me, because I think the left brain and right brain is kind of like, it's kind of an overdone trope. So the idea of communication, small group exercise, words and emotions. Maybe
Small
that's
I
group.
like that.
exercise,
Okay.
words and emotions.
Small group
Exercise, communication,
exercise,
small group exercise, words and emotions. I'm going to throw that in the chat right now.
communication,
Yeah.
and then words and emotions.
Yeah, and there might be a way to say to be more. I'll ponder it, and if you come up with something, and you let me know, because your practical application can mean a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me have a thought on that one. Because I
Good.
think they said that because I was advised to name frame, so the minute you name frame the thing,
Yeah,
then you own it. You own it. You need to
exactly
own
right.
this. This is yours. And Robert Kiyosaki has his quadrant, cash flow quadrant and things like this.
Yeah.
You need to name frame it, and the minute it's yours. It's yours. I love it. I think you should
Well, the
have a.
name of my book, I think the name of my volume 1 of my book is going to be Extreme Mindfulness, a handbook for enlightenment in 10-minute intervals. And if I describe this as a 10-minute interval, let someone talk for 10 minutes and then feedback. That would be a 10-minute exercise in enlightenment, maybe. So I'll put that in the chat too, and we'll go from there. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, improving the feedback loops. I mean, that's again, yeah, this is something that I've thought a lot about.
feedback
Yeah.
loops. Yeah,
That's right.
small group exercise, words and emotions in feedback loops.
That's right.
That adds something to it.
So unless you title it feedback loop, and then the description is communication small group exercise, words and emotions. That's your description. It's a description. You need the name. If you like feedback loop, that's catchy.
What did you say, Ann? I couldn't hear you.
The feedback loop is catchy.
I do. I think so too. It's something. It's like it's a loop, but yeah, and it just. I think that's. To me, that's something where it really is when we're talking about higher levels of consciousness, that's critical. Is this, how do you improve or the feedback loop? Like, how does it essentially synthesize enough? And that really can't. That's done through language, and what you're doing is essentially perfecting that.
Well,
So somehow,
go ahead.
No, okay, I'm done.
Well, I think the idea of feedback loop, that right there is capturing. It's a loop, and it sucks you in. What's a loop, right?
Right.
When it tells you what it is, it's a freaking loop. and it's how to break the chain of automatic response, which is one loop. One
Mm.
loop, that automatic response change. And now we're going to break that loop and create some new loops that add more dimensions to the conversation. Wow.
Okay,
It's a relationship too.
you've got down the description of feedback loop right here. Okay, I've written here. Okay, your feedback loop. Communication, small group exercise, words and emotions. Practical application for mindfulness. Break the chain of automatic response.
Cool.
What a
Let me know what
final
you come
thought.
up with. It's some of those words, and you may find something even better. Let me know.
No, that's brilliant. I like it. You know, I think you've got the description there as a little summarized description of what it is, and then with a name frame. Okay, I'll test it out. I'll let you know.
See, we're just not that far away from our appointed time, so we'll see you all next
Okay.
week.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hey,
Have a
thanks for
great
making
week
it, Joe,
ahead.
from your thing. Thanks for stepping
Oh,
outside.
no.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I did. I'm so happy that I did. So it's
See you
great to see you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.